I'm returning to some NBA talk with my man Ephraim Salaam. And Ephraim, one of the big stories to come out of Golden State winning their 4th championship in this run, this dynastic run, 4 titles in 6 trips to the finals in 8 years, is the discussion of, is Steph Curry now a top 10 player of all time? And a lot of people are throwing that phrase out, oh, he's top 10, he's top 10. And a lot aren't putting lists with it, right? So I think most people, when they think top 10, they're really thinking about 14 or 15 players. And I actually think some people are doing it so much that I almost think some people think of it as a designation, which I'm going to be honest, I would be fine with. But it's almost like people saying, oh, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer or he's a superstar. It's a designation. We don't know the exact 10. It might be 12, but you're in that group. You're that great that you're a top 10 player. And again, I would be cool with it because it obviously is incredibly difficult to name 10. But I think it should be done. I did it. Okay. I put Steph Curry in my top 10. And let me just say this before I go on. Here's what I view, because it's difficult, obviously. You got eras, right? You've got different positions that guys play. You've got different skill sets, different roles on the team. So I think all those are important, and guys are facing those different situations. Obviously, statistics, championships, things like that are important, just all around game skills. But here's what I don't think best player or better player is, Ephraim. It's not a checklist of skills. If it was a checklist of skills, David Robinson might check more boxes than Shaq. But obviously, Shaq was better. If it was a checklist of skills in football, Aaron Rodgers would be considered better than Tom Brady. But obviously, it's not just the checklist of skills. It's not who can win one-on-one, right? If Kyrie could beat Steph one-on-one, it maybe could, maybe couldn't, I don't know. That doesn't mean he's the better player, at least in my view. We had Tracy McGrady on a few weeks ago, Ephraim, and he said, he was like, LeBron's the best player of this era. But I think he said he thinks there's a lot of guys who could beat LeBron one-on-one.
Yeah, well,
and so I don't think I think as important as all the other things are, and it's a mix, it's a gumbo, I think one of the big factors, is impact on winning. I think that's how you can compare guys of different positions, skill sets, all of that. Impact on winning. And so when I look at impact on winning, Ephraim, that's how I put Steph Curry in the top 10 all time.
Okay, now, I never thought about in a top 10 list of all-time greats in the NBA, one-on-one basketball.
Okay.
Because that's not what they played.
Right.
They played.
But some people think that way.
Okay,
so
well,
I'm with you're with me.
Sometimes you got to start weeding out the some peoples. Right? Like sometimes when you're in these arguments and you're in the barbershop or you having these discussions, you got to recognize who you're having an argument with. Right? And you got to start just weeding people out. Like
I feel you.
Start nodding a lot and be like, okay. But you don't give anything back, so you don't have to continue with the foolishness. All right? So when I think
I get a lot of practice at that.
Well, I'll tell you this. You say you put him in his in the top 10.
Yes.
So my question to you would be, who do you take out? Now, I just typed in on Google top NBA players all time. This is what popped up. Just the pictures right here. It says it's Jordan, LeBron, Kareem, Tim Duncan, Bill Russell, Shaquille O'Neal, Magic Johnson, Wilt Chamberlain, Kobe Bryant, Larry Bird. Yep. If we just said, okay, that's going
10.
to be the top 10, who do you put Steph in front of on that list?
All right,
that's a better question.
Yeah, no, it is a good question because that's why most people don't do lists. I did a list.
Mm-hmm.
And let me preface it with this.
Oh, here we go. You know it's some bull jive when somebody say,
No.
Before I tell you something,
I gotta give the whole context of the story.
Okay.
I have been a huge proponent of Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay, yeah. I mean, how could you not be?
Right. I have called the NBA record book the biography of Wilt Chamberlain because it is to a large degree. You know it.
Yes.
What do we say when guys put up huge numbers? When Kevin Love was getting 20s and 20s, rebounds, points in Minnesota. Best number since the merger, right, of ABA, NBA. Is really best number since Wilt Chamberlain. And here's what I did, Ephraim. I said, I believe, and I think you would agree with me, today's players, mainly the great players, but today's players are under the most scrutiny of any players in league history. That goes for all the leagues.
Well,
right?
Of course, because there's more because of social media. There's more analysts out there.
But even before social media certainly is a factor. But I'm talking about traditional media. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Wilt Chamberlain, Larry Bird, so on and so forth, did not have debate shows every single day.
Right.
So, like, if Michael missed a potential game winner in Utah on a Tuesday night in January, it was no big deal. People don't even remember that. Today, it's talked about ad nauseum. It's said it's compared to Jordan and all the greats all time. It becomes a big deal. So these players are under far more scrutiny than the players of yesteryear. And so what I did, Ephraim, I said, what if Wilt Chamberlain, all the players, but what if Wilt Chamberlain was playing today and under the same scrutiny as the rest of these guys? And I looked at everything, and I found Wilt Chamberlain would come up wanting. As great as he is, as great as he was, he would be getting crushed with these discussions today because we know he won 2 championships. His numbers individually are the best we've ever seen. But Wilt Chamberlain often came up small in the big moments. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 30 points, Ephraim, in the regular season and only 18 in the finals. If a player today had a 12-point drop, that type of drop, he'd be getting heavily criticized. Steph Curry got crushed for scoring 16 points in a game. Steph Curry's never, ever had a finals game in which he scored in single figures. Wilt Chamberlain scored 4 points in the finals game, 5 points twice, 8 points twice, 10 points twice, 12 points 3 times, 13 points once. Like, he only played the same amount of finals games, 35, as Steph. And he was a huge scorer. And those are games, not games he got hurt, not games he fouled out, games he played, some of them 48 minutes. Not just 40, 48. And then, of course, he kept losing to Bill Russell. He lost to Willis Reed. He lost to Kareem. The year they finally got over the hump, the second championship, and won, Willis Reed was out. So he didn't have to face him in the finals when they played the Knicks. And people would say, well, Russell had all the Hall of Famers, Wilt didn't. Well, Wilt played 4 full years with Jerry West. 2 of those years, Elgin Baylor was there. The other 2 years, Gail Goodrich, another Hall of Fame guard, was there. And I'm not doing this to disparage Wilt. Unfortunately, when you had these discussions, it sounds that way. But he's a great. He's right there at that top 10, and I won't get mad if anybody got him in their top 10, which most people do, and I have it throughout my career. But if I had to take one looking at that list that you said, because all those other guys are on it, I had Wilt off and Steph on with the rest of those guys you named.
Okay, so what about Oscar Roberts?
I had to. I've had Steph as the second best point guard for the last couple of years, so that wasn't as big a jump. You know, Magic's first, Steph second, Oscar third, Isaiah fourth on my list.
And look, under that rationale, I can't. I wouldn't.
You
be
understand
able to,
where I'm coming? I mean, and I'm not trying to diss Will. I'm just saying.
I get it. Me personally, I wouldn't put Steph in the top 10 over Wilt Chamberlain, because if Wilt Chamberlain in his prime stepped on an NBA court today, he would dominate. Do you know why? He would dominate. Do you know why? Because there are no centers in the NBA. Okay? So, and the very same game where Al Horford had
he was hitting
wait
threes.
a minute. The very same game that I watched and you watched and everybody watched in the finals, where Al Horford had Steph Curry guarding him in the paint, and he decided to dribble and throw it back 28 feet behind the three-point line. Wilt Chamberlain is going to rip the rim down on top of anybody that the Golden State Warriors could have put out there in front. You get what I'm saying? So there are no centers.
He would be awesome. There
are no centers left to stop someone with Wilt Chamberlain's ability.
But would he have dominated? He would have been great, but would he have dominated the Kareems, the Shaqs, the Olajuwons? I know he would have been one of the greats. Obviously,
he would have been. He would have been seen right, because he was the Shaq of that time, right? Like he was the unstoppable force of that time. So if you put him right now, where Steph Curry plays today in this era, against the centers that they have now, what do you think Wilt Chamberlain would do to DeAndre Ayton? Or what do you think he'd do to
look, he'd be great.
First of all, he's fast.
Would he lead teams to championship?
He was one of the fastest players in the league at the center position. So let's so it's not like he's
arguably the greatest athlete.
He's not going to be lumbering down the court, right? When you see this gazelle of a man who's 7'1", right, 265, sprinting past everybody, in today's NBA, that's a different dynamic. It's like, who is that? What is going on here? Right, no, so that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking in terms of that. So for me, I wouldn't take him out of the top 10 for Steph Curry. I put Steph, in that 11 to 15 range all day long.
That's fair. And look, I hate having Wilt out. But again, one of my big factors was,
and plus he slept with 20,000 women, so you got to throw him in. I mean, come on, man. How you gonna take him? Let's play a player, right? Let's play a player right there, man. Come on, man.
How'd he play, right? How'd he play with all that? All right, look, is Steph Curry in your all-time top 10?
All right, let's see what the people have to say. Will in Wisconsin, you are on the Odd Couple. What you got?
Hey, what's going on, Ephraim? What's going on, Mr. CB? Absolutely. When I saw your list come out, I think on Twitter or something, there's no co-signing needed for that. It's as official, I suppose, as fair as it is. Steph can't be regarded as the best shooter, even at this point. I know his career isn't done, but we're regarding him as the best shooter ever. There's no way in a league that's designed. I know he's not at the clip where MJ was as far as scoring titles, but he's the best at being able to put that ball in the hoop from a distance, and he's got to be on the top 10.
All right. And look, I think he's a top 5 ball handler of all time. At the very least, I think everybody got to agree top 10, but I say top 5. So, all right.
Top 5 ball handler?
Oh, yeah. His handle is nasty.
No, his handle is nasty.
Right.
His handle is nasty, but that's not what he does. So there are guys...
but he did it again. He can do it. People get caught up in the shooting. He can finish.
Okay, but
he's mid-range.
What you have to
handle, take you off the dribble.
I get that.
Pass,
but when you say top 5 ball handler of all time, you can't say, he can do it, right? Because it's part of the game.
He's okay, but he's a great ball handler.
Like
he'll get a little sloppy here and there, but that's his. I think that's his personality. He gets sloppy with his shots, too.
I understand that, but when we're talking about the top 5 greatest ball handlers, right? That's part of their game. You understand what I'm saying? That's part of their game. Because
that's part of his game.
What
How do you create
for.
shots? He creates shots with his handle.
He
ain't doing it with nothing else. He ain't the quickest guy in the world.
No, he's doing it with a lot of screens.
He's running around.
He's doing it with a lot of screens. He's doing it, he's doing the Reggie Miller. Right, he's doing.
But he can do it. He's like a combination of Reggie Miller He ain't got Kyrie's number one handle all time. Isaiah's in that group.
Allen Iverson, hello, wake up, man. Pay attention.
I put his handle above Iverson's.
Who are you tripping? You tripping. Okay, we're going to go to the people. Iverson. You completely fell off the whole ship.
Iverson had the crossover. Outside of that,
please, man, please stop that.
Real talk.
We're going to MJ in New Orleans. You're on the Odd Couple. What you got?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How y'all doing?
Good, brother.
Good, man. How are you?
All right. No, I don't currently have Wardell, Steph, and Curry II in my fictional top 10, which is speculative. Right. Let's wait like we used to do prior to putting players into this mythical top 10 and the Basketball Hall of Fame. I do believe whoever's in anyone's top 10 has to be able to transcend any era. Steph, I'm just not sure he could. But
why not?
Great. 90s was we saw the 90s. There was a lot of players. I'm just saying, if you're in the top 10, you should be able to transcend any era. 50, 60,
I'm saying, who's to say he couldn't? I mean, you can speculate, but Boston.
It was too physical.
Hold on. Boston was physical this playoff series. I thought Boston played 90s basketball in the playoffs, and they shut down or they gave major problems to Kevin Durant. And I even said, that shows you what would happen to Durant in the 90s. He'd be great, but he'd have some trouble too.
Yeah, but you also
Steph didn't have any trouble with
Boston.
But
you also have to remember, that was one team, that was one team. Could he do that every night? Because that was the recipe in the 90s. It wasn't just a one team that was physical. You had to bring your big boy pants to play every single night. No, man, his body physically
he's moving without the ball.
He wouldn't even be.
Well, he built his body up. Well, he wasn't going to be going to the hole like Michael Jordan, getting hammered like that.
No, he wasn't.
But he would be moving without the ball like Reggie Miller did and shooting better than Reggie, handled, shake you up off the dribble. Like, I mean, look, people can speculate, but we don't know that he wouldn't be able to transcend. Because like I said, Boston's defense this postseason was the closest we've seen to the 90s. And he ate them up like a candy bar.
Oh, like a candy bar.
Like that?
So emphatic right there. Let me get out of here with that. Kenny in D.C., you on the Odd Couple. What you got?
Good evening, Mr. Broussard and Mr. Salaam.
How you doing,
What's up, man?
All right. When it comes to the debate, it's kind of like hard to do for the different eras. Now, I listen to the Odd Couple almost religiously. And you guys never bring up Nate Tiny Archibald as one of the greatest smaller guards there ever was.
Well, he's definitely one of the great guards, period, that there ever was. Here's the problem with Tiny. He didn't have the longevity. I mean, obviously, some players have incredibly long careers. Some players don't. But Tiny, because he got injured, you really look at his resume, he had about 4 years where he really was killing it. And then he got hurt. And then he came back and showed he was a complete player because he was more of a traditional point guard with the Celtics. And he won a championship with them as the starting point guard and was an all-star with Larry Bird on the team. So Tiny definitely is an all-time great. Nobody wants to take him out of the Hall of Fame. Nobody's arguing he's not top 50, now top 75. But that's the child. When you compare him to the Stephs, the Isaiah Thomases, the guys like that, it's like, okay, because of the injuries, but his career, his like exceptional individual play was kind of cut short because of his injury. And he had about 4 years like that.